I really hope you enjoyed that commercial, and the purpose of this video is just to walk you through some of the steps that I did and how I created this video in my own house. The lighting setup for this was very simple. That only involved 3 lights. I had an Aputure 120D with a softbox as my key light. I had an Aputure LED light panel as my backlight, and then I just blasted a tungsten light at my backdrop. And this created this nice gradient which matched the 7-Up brand colors perfectly. Now let's talk about the stop animation. My tripod setup was quite sketchy and I don't have any C-stands laying around at home, so I had to come up with this weird rig in order to get that overhead shot. But at the end of the day, the shot still looks the same, and you just have to get creative with whatever you have lying around. Stop animation is quite simple when you're doing something basic like this. You put a lemon down, you take a photo, or you can take a short video clip, put the next fruit down, and do the same thing and repeat until you've built up all of your items onto the canvas. I knew I wanted this shot of all the lemons and limes flying up towards the lens. We actually came up with the idea of a canvas. And all I did was cut the back bars out. I placed it down on 2 surfaces. I clamped one end, and that allowed me to smash the bottom of the canvas very easily and allow everything to fly up with ease. When I was thinking about the story and planning out all the shots, I knew I would need a transition shot in between the shot of all the lemons and limes flying up towards the lens and then falling into the fish tank. So I had Ksenia sit below the frame and just grab a baking sheet and toss the lemon and limes directly straight above. And from here I can easily transition from the lemon and limes flying up and then landing into the fish tank. And then I just started having fun with it. I was tossing the lemon and limes into the water with different intensities. I was getting shots on the side of the fish tank underwater. I was getting macro shots on the top with all the lemon and lime splashing. And in order to see the splashing and the water drops flying around, I cranked my shutter a bit to about 1/400th of a second. And this allowed me to get more detail in the splashes. When I was doing some research on the 7-Up website, I had this shot of the 7-Up can underwater with carbonation, and I wanted to find a way, how can I tie that shot into my story? So I already had all the lemon and limes into the water, and then I just dropped the can at 120 frames a second, filming above the water, falling through the lemon and limes. My next shot was to get the camera underneath the fish tank so I can capture the can falling through the lemon and limes so I can see that logo. Filming with the Canon 5D Mark IV is tricky because there's no swivel screen. And when you're filming at 120 frames a second, there's no autofocus. So one trick that you can use to solve this is that when you place your camera underneath, you're gonna have to do a few tests, but what you can do before you hit record, if you push that shutter down halfway, that will pre-focus. And then you just hit record and then drop the can. So this shot here with the can underwater with the carbonation and the lemon and limes floating in the background is very easy to do, but when you put the can in the water, it's gonna float on its own. So what you have to do is weigh it down with something. Thankfully, I had some little weights lying around. I just put that on the can and that kept the can in place. One trick that I did to create some carbonation within the tank, I used some Alka-Seltzer tablets. I crushed them up a little bit, sprinkled them in around and behind the can to get some depth, and then I just hit record and started dropping the lemon and limes behind the can just to create more depth and some more dynamic to the shot. I knew I wanted to incorporate the 7-Up brand colors into some of the backdrops, but I don't own all those colors. And I noticed on a few of Austin Paul's videos he was using a TV as a backdrop, and I thought it was brilliant, so I wanted to give that a try here. So I went onto the 7-Up website, I sampled a lot of their brand colors, I brought it into Photoshop, created some backdrops, and then I just placed the can on my canvas. And at this point, my canvas was brand new. I kept the plastic on because it created this nice reflection, this really subtle reflection on top of the white. So I just kept my camera on a tripod, placed the can down, and I just rotated through the backdrops. And in the edit, I keyframed about a 20% push in as the backgrounds rotated through the colors. So now we have the part where the can is spinning really quickly in slow motion and the water drops are flying off. So I drilled a hole at the bottom of the can, and then I used some gaff tape to secure the can to the drill. At first I was spraying the can from the right side, and when the can was spinning like this, the water wasn't giving me the effect that I needed. It was just kind of bouncing off. So then on the next take, we started spraying the can from the opposite side. So as the can was rotating like this, the water would hit the can and wrap around and fly off perfectly. The macro shots that you see where the water drop is sliding down the side of the can, or you see all the bubbles bubbling at the top of the glass, there's a little trick I wanted to show you, that if you take your lens and then turn it around the other way and film through it backwards, then you get this whole new perspective and a whole new lens for $0 for the same lens you already own. You can get these extremely close, highly detailed macro shots, and I use my 50. One word of caution or one tip when you're using this, if I were to do my macro shots at 1.2, I wouldn't get anything in focus. So what I had to do is I stopped this lens down to about f8. But when you pull this lens off, it automatically opens up wide again to f1.2. There's a little button on the front of my camera that locks the aperture. So when I push that, that allows me to pull the lens off and keep it locked in place at f8. And that way I can shoot at a more reasonable f-stop to get these really shallow depth of field macro shots. And then there you go. You got yourself a little macro lens. You're welcome. Have a good day. Hope you enjoyed that. Now let's get to the drainage shot. I knew in my story that I wanted to have this shot once the can opened, of this vortex of all the water draining out to kind of simulate liquid exiting the can. So I placed the funnel over my fish tank. I supported it in between two stools, gave it a little stir, pulled the bottom out, and then there we go. I got my vortex shot. The shot here where the 7-Up is being poured was a handheld shot where I was above the 7-Up can and then I literally dropped to my knees as fast as I can. I tried to drop at a free fall pace so I can match the fall of the liquid into the glass. So the hardest part to this shot is not the free fall and trying to keep everything in frame, it's nailing focus. Because the first thing you do is set up your shot, you pre-focus on the distance between you and the 7-Up can, and then when you land, you have to land at that exact distance so that your shot is still in focus. And finally, we get to the end product shot. This shot here we did first, before anything else was destroyed. I made sure to keep the plastic on the canvas to get that nice subtle reflection. I made sure to keep all my cans really, really cold so that when I pulled them out of the fridge, they would create this natural condensation that you see. I did spray everything with some water to create those water drops and another element of detail into the product shot. So that is it. That is how I created this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to show you that even with simple, basic camera equipment, you can create something really fun and exciting in your own home. I filmed this in my basement and in my living room in one day, so I hope this inspires you to go out, create some awesome art, and I'll see you on the next one.